Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the DFS Army Killshot podcast. I am Kyle Marley. With me is Dan Levy, host of Half the Battle. We're going to break down this UFC Vegas 44 card for you from a DraftKings perspective, maybe hit on some bets as well. But I'm looking forward to this card. So there's some awesome fights on this card. Again, we got 100K up top on DraftKings, which is always great. And it's a perfect warm-up for next week's pay-per-view. But how do you feel about it, Dan?
I feel great, man. I mean, Jose Aldo in the main event taking on Rob Font, Jimmy Crute versus Jamal Hill, Mackie versus Dusko. It's going to be a hell of a card.
Hell yeah, I cannot wait. The co-main and the main are worth the money. I would pay for this card, but we're getting it for free. So hopefully we get to watch some fights for free and then make some money along the way. But let's start on the first fight of the night. We got Luis Smolka minus 150 against Vince Morales plus 130. I usually love my curtain jerkers for DraftKings. This one, I'm not really sure what to do with. Usually Smolka fights score pretty well, so I feel like it's one to target. But for me, it's more so on the Smolka side. How do you see this fight going down?
I agree, man. I mean, listen, Vince Morales, props to him for staying in the UFC as long as he has. I've just never been that impressed, man. I've always thought that he was kind of underwhelming. I think Smolka holds his own. Obviously, he's known for his scrambles. His hands have been getting better last few fights, too. I think Smolka comes out here and wins this fight. Is the more imposing guy.
I agree. I kind of just give him the edge everywhere, and I think he's got more finishing potential as well. He's the one with the ceiling because he is the better grappler. If he's out there looking for takedowns, he can land a lot of them, keep a lot of top control time, land some ground strikes, and he can lock up a submission as well. So Smolka is the one with the ceiling in this fight, and I do want to be overweight on him. When he loses, though, he allows his opponents to score a shit ton of DraftKings points. So I'm a little worried about the Morales fade, but I'm not high on him either. I feel like it's just the boxing that he's bringing to the table. And if he's not knocking Smolka out, I just don't see him scoring well. He hasn't scored well yet on DraftKings. So I might fade him. If not fading, I'll probably keep him, sub 10% in ownership with my MME. But for me, it's going to be Smolka, and I will take him to win a unanimous decision if he doesn't get a finish along the way. Next fight on the card, we got Alex Morono minus 235 against a Mickey Gall plus 190. Break this one down for me, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, look, I got to give Mickey Gall a lot of credit. He's made a lot of improvements. I mean, from a guy that was in here fighting CM Punk and Mike Jackson to all of a sudden he's fighting Randy Brown. He's come a long way, man. He's grown up inside the octagon. He's got decent pop on his hands, known for his jiu-jitsu mostly. I think Morono, he's had close to 3 times the experience as Mickey Gall. Morono turns up on guys, man. He starts throwing big bombs, also a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I just think he's a few steps ahead of Mickey Gall right now. So give me Morono to get it done. But, looking for underdogs. If Mickey gets that early finish, that's great for him lineup-wise. But I think Morono's got enough to take him into deep waters.
I agree. I just think Morono's better everywhere in this fight. If Gall is going to win, though, it's got to be through the grappling. I don't know that he can submit Morono, but maybe he can grind out 2 rounds. His striking's getting better. I just don't think he's on Morono's level. I think Morono will be the higher volume guy, the one pushing forward, more KO power. So I do got to go with Morono to win the fight. However, I can't get a Morono fight right to save my life. So maybe that means this is a Gall all the way. I don't know. But at the same time, Morono's 9,500 on DraftKings, and it's hard for me to want to pay that price for a guy who I don't see going out there wanting to land a lot of takedowns. So I'd rather pay up for other 9K spots. But Morono does have 4 fights on his UFC log where he scored over 100 points. So he can get there. I'm not going to fade him because he should be somewhat lower owned. But for me, it's really Gall or pass if I'm going to be hand building lineups with either one of these guys. But I have a feeling I'll be more so on the pass side because I don't think Gall will have too much grappling success in this fight. So give me Morono to win a unanimous decision. Probably take all 3 rounds on the scorecards. Next one on the card is going to be one of my favorite GPP fights to target. Most likely, we got Azamat Murzakanov minus 210 versus Jared Vandera plus 175. I don't know that we're going to need the judges for this one, but how do you see it going down?
Yeah, I mean, look, Murzakanov, obviously he's Russian. Russians, if you calculate every single year the win percentage for Russians, it tends to be up there in terms of the win column, man. But that being said, every fight's different, and This kid does actually kind of belong at 205 or even possibly middleweight. He's not only fighting a heavyweight, he's fighting one of the bigger heavyweights. Vandera is about 265 pounds. He's going to come in at the limit. So a couple scenarios to be careful about if Murzakanov, empties the clip, kind of gasses out against the bigger men, if Vandera can eat his best shots. Another thing is, gassing out from attempting to wrestle the big man, and then down the stretch, Vandera can win. But those are kind of comeback scenarios for Vandera. But I think that Murzakanov, kind of comes out here and is just too fast for Vandera, man. So one thing about the size difference, yeah, the bigger man is Vandera, but the faster man is going to be Murzakanov. So give me Murzakanov to win this fight and actually stop Vandera.
Yeah, I think Murzakanov has the much better chance of ending this fight in the first round and scoring 100-plus points. Most of his wins are in the first round. I think he can get that finish with a knockout or just dominate in top control and get a TKO finish. Either way, he would score well in that scenario. But I think whoever gets in top control could have a lot of success here. If Vandera can get takedowns, he's such a big guy. I don't know that Murzakanov can get him off of him. And if this fight gets extended into the later second round or the third round, I feel like it's Vandera's fight to start taking over. He'd be the higher volume striker, just a much bigger guy, which I really think is going to cause problems for Murzakanov. So I'm going with the underdog here. I just think he could pull off an upset. This Murzakanov guy's 35 years old, so his best days are over with, I think. He looked pretty good. It's just a lot of these Contender Series guys look okay, and then they get to the big show, and they're not showing you the same thing. So I'd rather go with the underdog in this one because I think Murzakanov will have the ownership, which I'm cool with. I'll probably be in line with the field on the ownership-wise just because he has that high ceiling. He is projected to win. He's got a plus 100 inside the distance line. So I'm cool with Murzakanov, but he'll have the ownership where I think Vandera goes overlooked, and I like targeting these heavyweights that go overlooked who have a path to victory that could score well. He is a high-volume striker, and if he gets in top control, I think he could finish the fight there. So give me Vandera to pull off the upset. Definitely not sold on Vandera as a fighter. It's more so the line that talked me into this one. But it's also the weight class that talked me into it. I think Murzakanov belongs at 205, and he's just fighting such a big guy who he could have some problems with. So I'm hoping that I get this one right because that could really put me ahead of the field if I do get the finish from Vandera here. But we'll see what happens. Next fight on the card, we got Claudio Puelles, who is now the slight favorite, I guess, at minus 115 versus Chris Gruetzemacher minus 105. Break this fight down for me, Dan.
Puelles has come a long way, man. If you watch his debut, it looked like it probably wasn't going to pan out in the UFC. But since that point, he's gotten a lot better. His scrambling ability is decent. He's put on a lot of size. He's kind of growing into that grown man body. So, it's good to see him make improvements. Gruetzemacher is kind of a deceptive guy because you go out there, you hit him with your hardest shot, you hit him with a baseball bat, you empty the clip, just hitting him as hard as you can, and you wonder why he's still there. Props to Alex Hernandez for actually getting him out of there because it's kind of a tough thing to do. I think that unless Claudio Puelles can kind of, take him down and hold him down, I think Gruetzemacher is going to make him work, man. So give me Gruetzemacher via kind of a sweaty decision here.
Yeah, I think if it goes to a decision, I would favor Gruetzemacher there because I don't know that Puelles can do a hard 3 rounds of grappling, and the grappling is where he needs to get this fight because I don't think he can outstrike Gruetzemacher. I don't think he's knocking him out. I think he could maybe grind out 2 rounds, but I'm going to pick Puelles to get a submission here. I think he could get a submission in the first or second round, score well that way. I don't think either one of these guys will have too much ownership, so Puelles is the guy that I'd rather go overweight to. Gruetzemacher he landed, I believe, 176 total strikes in his last fight, and he only scored 85 DraftKings points. So if he's not going for takedowns, he's not getting knockdowns, not getting a knockout, I just don't see him scoring really high. So I'm not going to get too much exposure to him. So it's going to be more so Puelles or pass for me, and it's the submission upside that I'm targeting. If he does not get that submission, I don't know that he's even going to win this fight, and he doesn't do enough work, whether it's on the feet or the ground, if he's not getting the submission, to score 100-plus points in a decision. So I'm really hoping that the submission does come through if I'm rostering this guy, but I am going to go with Puelles to get the submission upset there. Well, I guess it's not really an upset anymore. It's kind of a pick 'em fight, but he's my guy in that fight. really in all formats. Next fight on the card, we got a good one. We got some big dudes here. Alonzo Menifield minus 155 against William Knight plus 135. Man, these guys could bench press a lot of weight. I wouldn't want to get into a weightlifting competition with either one of these dudes, and they both have power to put the other one out. But how do you see this one going down?
I don't want to get into any competition with either of these two, man. I mean, these guys would whip my ass at anything. This is going to be fun. I mean, William Knight, he's on the smaller side for light heavyweight, but he's so goddamn explosive. He's so strong. Hits like an absolute truck. Is tough as nails, man. I mean, not only can he give it, he can take it as well. Menifield, he's more of the normal size for 205, right? Like, he's not 5'10" at 205. He's at least 6 feet tall. It says he's 6 feet, but I think he's closer to 6'1", 6'2". At least he's a naturally sized light heavyweight. I mean, not saying that Willie isn't, because I mean, you'd have to cut Willie's leg off for him to make 85. You know what I mean, Kyle? I just think that right now Menifield's a little bit more polished than William Knight, so I'm going to take him for that reason. However, it can't be that confident because I mean, William is so explosive, and Menifield tends to gas sometimes when fights go past a certain point, and you got to be worried about that in any fight. So give me Menifield right now by being slightly ahead, but William Knight, I think he'll be back.
Yeah, I'm going with Menifield here as well. I think for Knight to win this fight, it's got to be, just a puncher's chance knockout or him landing takedown, spending a lot of time in top control, and most likely getting a TKO if that's the case, but he could win a decision as well if the takedowns are there. I just don't think that that's going to be the case. I think it's going to be hard to get Menifield down, and I think Menifield's got a big striking advantage here, whether that's power or a 15-minute striking match. I'll take Menifield in either one of those, but for him to score 100-plus points, he's going to need the knockout. I think he can get it. I just think he's that much ahead on the feet. William Knight is not a good defender of strikes, and if he eats a big one from Menifield, I feel like he's going down. So I like the Menifield side on this one, but we do have minus 190. Fight does not go to decision. So Knight's a solid play as well, because if he does win, whether it's that wrestling or the knockout, it's going to score well. So Knight's a solid underdog for GPPs. GPP only, though, I would not trust him in cash games, and Menifield's going to be my pick just because I think he will stuff takedowns, and it's going to be a long night for Knight on the feet here. I see him getting knocked out in the first or second round, which would score very well for Menifield. So, yeah, I'm going to be heavy on that fight, probably more than half of my total lineups. But if I'm going to be overweight on either one, it's Menifield, and then underweight on Knight, because I think the ownership will be there for Knight, and I don't really want to get too much leverage to him. I'd rather take the underdogs I'm picking to win, or guys who I think have a clearer path to victory with a higher ceiling. Next fight on the card, we got Cheyenne Vlismas minus 190 against Mallory Martin plus 160. Vlismas, formerly known as Cheyenne Bays. I think she looked pretty damn good in her last fight. She looked good in the Contender Series, but she looked really bad against that Montserrat Ruiz girl. So it's kind of hard to know what we're going to get here, but I do think she's the better fighter everywhere unless Mallory Martin can get into top control. That's her path to victory for me. But how do you see this fight going down, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I see it similarly. I think they're both kind of green, but I think that Vlismas has the edge standing. Mallory Martin, if she can get on top, that's where she'll do her best. But we've seen Mallory Martin get hurt in all her UFC fights, or at least be in trouble and danger of being finished. So it's a good spot for Vlismas. Just, I mean, her debut, she got held down for 15 straight minutes. So the path to victory is there for Martin. If she doesn't have to do a head and arm throw, but she's got more of a wrestling background. If she can just get on top and kind of stall her out a little bit. So the path to victory is there for Martin. I'm going to lean Vlismas. I think she's the more talented fighter, but yeah, look, I'm not confident, man. She's very green. There's a lot of distractions. So yeah, but give me Vlismas anyways.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just more impressed with what I've seen from Vlismas. I like her striking edge here. I think she does have a fairly big striking edge. She could get a TKO as well, and that would score well. But for her to score well in a decision, I think she's got to be landing takedowns here, landing some heavy ground and pound, just racking up the control time, racking up those ground strikes. That's the only way she can really get over a 10x in a decision win here. So I think she might go over a little little bit overlooked, which I'm cool getting some exposure to her for that reason. But this is not a fight that I'm looking to target really with my single entry or anything like that, because I feel like Vlismas does win a decision and she just doesn't score 10x, which won't put her on the optimal lineup. Martin, on the other hand, I think her path to victory, which is through the ground, would score well. We got a minus 250 fight goes to decision in this fight. So even in a loss, I think Martin can put up 30 plus points here. So I think she's a good cash game punt if we need to go there. But I don't know that she can grind out 2 or 3 rounds here on the ground, which is what it would take for her to score well. So I probably won't get a whole lot of her in GPPs either. But that's how I would do it, is if I'm putting this in a GPP lineup, it's going to be Vlismas. And if I'm putting it in a cash lineup, it's going to be Martin. But I expect this fight to go all 15 minutes, and I'll take Vlismas to get the job done by keeping this fight on the feet more so than it's on the ground. Next one on the card, we got Jake Matthews minus 180 versus Jeremiah Wells plus 155. This is one where I'm picking Jake Matthews to get the win, but Wells is my preferred DraftKings play just because he's the one with the ceiling, in my opinion. With all that power that he's got, I think he is live for a first-round knockout here, and that would put him on the optimal lineup, maybe break the slate, especially if it's within 60 seconds. Because I just don't see Matthews having a really high ceiling or a path to a high ceiling unless it's very grappling heavy here. But how do you see this fight going down, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, look, the potential on Jake Matthews by this point has had to have ran out, man. I mean, I get that he's only 26 or 27, but he's been in the UFC damn near 7 years, man. I mean, it's like, at what point, kind of like DeCasey, are we just going to be like, dude, like, he's just not the guy you thought he was? And I still would bet Li Jingliang against him if they ever fought again. Certain fights you just don't have an explanation for. I mean, whether it's Barella against Tyler Santos, right? Like Jake Matthews and Li Jingliang is one of those fights. I don't have an explanation for what happened that night. Like, if they ever fought again, I got Li Jingliang to beat Jake Matthews. And here, look, I don't know for sure that Jeremiah is going to win. I just know you can be plus 170 odds against Jake Matthews against almost anybody, and let's roll. Let's see what happens, right? Let's take that chance. Let's take that gamble. So I'm on Jeremiah Wells here, and hopefully he can come out here and break Jake Matthews down the stretch, or early works for me too, but just come out here and win, kid. So yeah, I got Jeremiah Wells, and hopefully he can create some magic.
Yeah, I think for Wells to win this fight, it's got to be a knockout, and just because I do give Matthews the grappling and the cardio edge here. I think he's actually the better striker too. So if he avoids the knockout blow, I feel like he wins on the feet as well. It's just that Wells is the underdog, but he's got a higher inside the distance line. He's got a better inside the distance line at plus 250 compared to Matthews plus 275. So I'm not looking to pay up for Matthews in this fight. I would rather target guys who are going to be looking to grapple or have a path to a first round finish. So Matthews is going to be a fade for me, and I will get some exposure to Wells because I think he can go out there and get a first-round knockout, which is, in my opinion, his most likely path to victory. So he's the one with the ceiling. He's the cheaper one. You got to have underdogs in DraftKings. So even though I'm picking him to lose, Jeremiah Wells will be my preferred DraftKings play in that fight. Next one on the card, we got Manel Kape minus 280 versus Zhumagulov plus 225. Talk to me about this one, Dan.
Look, Manel Kape, I know he's 1-2 in the UFC right now, but mark my words, he will fight for a UFC title one day before it's all said and done. This guy is so damn explosive. He hits extremely hard for the weight class. It's just about him getting out of his own way, man. I mean, he kind of marches to the beat of his own drum. He's one of these guys that thinks he's always winning the fight no matter what happens, and sometimes as a result, the output can be kind of low. But I'm telling you, man, when this guy lets his hands go, bodies will hit the floor. And one thing about Zhalgas, he's good everywhere, man. I mean, I can't knock him. It's just that he's a little bit on the smaller side. He can be bullied. He backs up a lot. And I think when Kape connects, Zhalgas is going to feel it for sure. So give me Manel Kape to come out here and get his second UFC win.
Yeah, I'm going to be on Kape as well. I just think he is the better striker here, much more power. And I'm going to pick him to get a knockout. But on DraftKings, he has to get that knockout for him to score well because he's not going to be out there landing takedowns. And he's not a high-volume striker. So the only way he scores well on DraftKings is with the knockout. And at his price tag, I just have a hard time wanting to pay up for him. So even though I'm picking him to win and I'm picking him to get the knockout, I'll probably end up full fading him on DraftKings because we're relying on a first-round knockout, and that's just not something I want to do. Zalgas, he's super cheap. He does have path to victory, whether it's striking or through the ground, but I think he's got to go ahead and get takedowns in this fight for him to even win it, really, but for him to score well on DraftKings. So for me, this fight's just a full fade. But if I had to put one of them in my lineup, I guess it would be Kape, just because I'm picking him to get a knockout. I'd rather just target guys who are more likely to grapple and can score well in a decision. So if the first round knockout's there, it's going to burn me because I really don't see me having any Kape. But he is going to be the pick here. I just think he does have a pretty big striking edge. And like you said, when he hits Zhumagulov, he's going to feel it a lot more than when Zhumagulov hits him. Next one on the card, we got Dusko Todorovic minus 155 against Maki Pitolo plus 135. I like this fight. I think it's going to be pretty fun. Should be mainly a striking match. But how do you see it going down?
Yeah, great fight, man. I mean, both these guys are so exciting, and people are always crying about fighters getting cut and stuff, and then they're saying these two are on the chopping block, and I'm thinking to myself, like, have you seen these two fight, man? These guys are so exciting that these guys can keep losing fights and they're going to keep getting fights because these guys put on a show every single time. Maki Pitolo, I can't knock his skills, man. I mean, the dude's got hands. He's got offensive takedowns. He's Hawaiian. He comes to fight. The only issue is he's got a bit of that Sean Soriano syndrome, a bit of that Michael Johnson syndrome. Like, he'll be dominating a fight and then he'll just do some dumb shit and get caught. And it's happened multiple times. With Dusko, he's a great fighter offensively. His issue is he fights with his hands down, and he's got a bit of that tall man defense. So both guys are live here, but if this is 1-1 going into the third round and I got to, rely on someone to make that smart decision to seal it, give me Dusko. But Mackey's live to catch him. I mean, look, anybody's live to catch Dusko if they get into a firefight with him. He fights with his hands down. So just by default, if you got a power puncher against Dusko, there's always a chance. So I feel people taking Mackey here, but I think Dusko can kind of work him down the stretch, in the pocket, in the clinch, mixing a takedown or two. Give me Dusko to edge it out.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. And I think if it is 1-1 going into that third, I would favor Dusko to get the win here. If it goes to a decision, he would be my pick. I think he could do a lot of work in top control, score well that way. He could get a knockout as well. So he's definitely in play. But I am going to go with the Pitolo side. I just think he can land that big, hard bomb that puts Dusko away. I just hate the striking defense when he's backing away with his chin in the air and his hands down. That's just not a good recipe against somebody like Pitolo, who will be marching forward, throwing coconut bombs, trying to take his head off. So I think Pitolo is an underdog who has a clear path to 100-plus points here, and that being the knockout. I am picking him to win. I do think this line should be a bit closer. However, he's going to be popular. I think you're the first person all week I've heard picking Dusko, which makes me not like Pitolo as much. I mean, if everyone's going to be on him, I would rather be different and just take the Dusko side on DraftKings. So I'm cool with both sides of this fight in GPPs. It'll be in, half or more of my total lineups. I definitely want the Pitolo exposure, but if he's going to be, the first or second highest owned underdog on the card, then I like him a lot less than I did, a couple days ago when I wasn't thinking about ownership. But I'm going to pick him to get the knockout. He could land a couple takedowns along the way, score okay in a decision. I think any win would probably put him over 10x as an underdog. But Dusko might go overlooked here just because, like I said, everyone's picking Pitolo in this fight. And if he's going to be that overlooked, it wouldn't shock me to see him get a knockout of his own, score well, and just lap the field. So I'll be getting some Dusko exposure as well. Can't wait for that fight. Should be a fun striking match for however long it lasts. All right, next one on the card, we got the one they just added. We got Brian Barberena, minus 125. His opponent got injured, so Darian Weeks is stepping up on short notice to make his UFC debut, and he is a plus 100. That line surprised me a little bit. I would give Barberena just a small amount of an edge more than that. And I'm a guy who's pretty much always been against Barberena. I think he's been overrated his whole career. It's just that people saw it in his last fight when he lost to Jason Witt, so they're not going to be high on him anymore. And I think this line is more reflective of people being sour on Barberena rather than high on Weeks. From what I saw, Weeks is a big, powerful dude. He's got heavy leg kicks. He can knock Barberena out on the feet. Barberena's biggest weakness is being taken down. Weeks could go out there and land takedowns, but I expect a striking match in this fight. And Barberena being the more experienced guy, pretty high volume, decent cardio. I favor Barberena to win that type of fight. I don't know that I love this fight for DraftKings. It is projected inside the distance, which is what we would need for either one of these guys to score well, I think. But I'm going to pick it to go to a decision and Barberena to get the win. So I'm just not going to be targeting either side too heavily. But how do you see this one going down?
I mean, look, Barberena's had a great run. I mean, he's had some amazing fights. The Luque fight, the Warley Alves upset back in the day, the Sage Northcutt upset. But I think that now, he's had a lot of wars. He's had a lot of surgeries. I think that he might kind of be towards the tail end. And when he was supposed to fight Matt Brown, I actually bet on Matt Brown at plus 160, which I thought was crazy. I'm like, why are these odds flipped? Like, why is Matt Brown plus 160 against Barberena when we know that it's going to be an absolute war? And Matt Brown's one of the kings of war in the UFC. He's the knockout king at welterweight. But Darion Weeks, on the other hand, he's only 5-0. He's a baby in this game. He's a kid. He's green. So I don't really know much about him except that he seems strong. He seems athletic. He seems explosive. But it's easy to see him that way until you step inside the octagon. So is he live? He's live in the sense that he's fighting a shot fighter. So there's that. But I think Barberena might have enough vet savvy to kind of still edge this one. Maybe. I'm not too confident because I was fading him for a reason. But I was fading him versus the welterweight knockout king. This is a different fight here. So I'm going to lean Barberena, but could be a letdown spot.
Yeah, I feel you. With my hand builds, I'm not going to touch either side of that fight because I'm picking it to go to a decision. But when I'm making my 150 with the domination station, I'll let both sides be in there. I'm not going to X either one out of my player pool because it's projected to end inside the distance, but I'll probably keep it limited to like a 15% max or something like that on both sides of it. But speaking of the optimizer, we have it for all sports. We got NFL, NBA are going strong right now. We got some big wins, some great coaches, some awesome tools. So no better time to sign up for DFS Army. Use promo code SLEEVELESS when you do, and that'll save you 10% every month. Give us a try. I think you will like it, and you'll probably stick around. We got an awesome Discord, so go in there. Make sure you hit us up with some questions. And we'll have coaches' notes posted after this, ownership projections. My full card breakdown will be on there. So we have it all for all sports. So give us a try. Next one on the card, we got Brendan Allen, minus 365, our biggest favorite, against Chris Curtis, plus 280, who's coming off a big knockout upset against Phil Hawes a couple weeks, which will be fresh in people's memories, but he's the cheapest guy on the card, so he's not going to gain a lot of ownership. I just think that he will have more ownership had that fight not happen. But how do you see this fight going down?
I'll be 100% honest with you. Props to Chris Curtis on the upset last time, but I mean, I think Brendan Allen's going to come in here and run through him, man. I think he's going to take him down one time and finish the fight shortly after, whether it's ground and pound, whether it's a submission. I'm glad Curtis finally got his first UFC win, but I think it's back to reality Saturday night. So give me Brendan Allen, and I think he covers his price tag.
Yeah, I like Allen. And if I can afford him, he's my favorite play on the card just because he has a clear path to victory, and that clear path is a clear path to a lot of points on DraftKings as well. His grappling is going to be the biggest advantage in this fight, and he can win all 3 rounds with the grappling, or he can get a submission, which is what I'm going to pick him to do here. It's not smart to go out there and have a striking match with Curtis when, in my opinion, that's his only chance to win. And it's really with the knockout. I don't know that Allen can't beat him in a 15-minute striking match, but he's just putting himself at so much more risk than he is on the ground. I think he can dominate this fight on the ground, and I like him in all formats. If I can afford his high price tag, then he'll be in a lot of my lineups, and I would like to be overweight. I just don't know that I will be able to fit him into my lineups without liking too many dogs on this card. But yeah, give me Allen to get the job done. I think he gets a submission in the first or second round. Curtis on the other end, I think he has to get the knockout again. And I had 0% of him in the last fight, so my night was dead after he got that knockout. I'm probably going to run it back and just go 0% again because I don't want to get any leverage to a guy who I think will be slightly over-owned as it is. So let's go Allen or pass for me in all formats, really. Next one on the card, we got a fight that I like quite a bit. We got Jimmy Crute minus 165 against Jamal Hill plus 145. This is going to be a fight that's in, more than half of my total lineups. I saw the coach's sheet already, so I know we're split on this side, but go ahead and talk about who you like.
Yeah, I mean, look, these are my two favorite prospects at 205. Been high on both these guys the entire time. I like what they bring to the table, man. I mean, Jim Crute is kind of a meathead that's well-rounded, man. I mean, he can take a shot. He can give a shot. He's got good takedowns, black belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm a big fan of Jimmy Crute. Jamal Hill, I'm an even bigger fan of. I mean, I think that you don't often see 205ers with that kind of output, with that kind of volume. And then if you go back to his debut where he got taken down, his get-up game is on point, man. He can get back up. He can make you work. I think the Paul Craig fight gave a lot of people a false impression of what his ground game is really about. And also, he got submitted. He went into Paul Craig's guard thinking he was going to show him a lesson. I think he probably learned from that, man. I don't think he's going to come out here trying to prove that he can beat a guy like Crute on the ground. I think he's going to try to keep it standing. And from there, Crute doesn't move his head, man. So Crute does have a path if he can mix in multiple takedowns, if he can get on top of Hill, if he can possibly submit him. But I think that Hill is going to be able to keep it standing or get back up from the takedowns. And from there, I think the difference in striking will be on full display. So Jamal has to be aware of, he's got to not get caught here because Jimmy is so dangerous. But I think Jamal wins the decision.
Yeah, I love this fight. Both sides, I think they both have 100-plus point potential here. I definitely worry about the fight IQ of both these guys. I picked them both in their last fights. I bet them both, I believe, as well. And they lost because they didn't have a good game plan. Jimmy Crute, his best path to victory was going to be to go to the ground, and he let Anthony Smith jab him to death for 4.5 minutes and then jack up his leg completely before he decided to go for a takedown. So I don't know that he's smart enough to want to go for takedowns in this fight, which would worry me. And then Hill, on the other hand, the only thing he had to not do in the last fight was go to the ground with Craig. And when he got out of that first submission, just stand up. That's all you got to do. And then he doesn't do that. He gets tapped out. His arms flopping around everywhere. So I don't trust either one of these guys fight IQ wise, but I do know that Jimmy Crute has the edge on the ground, and I give Hill the edge on the feet. However, I think the edge on the ground is just a lot more higher for Crute than Hill's striking edge. I think Crute can hang on the feet. I think the knockout would really be the only way he wins a striking match because he has, in my opinion, more power. But Hill's going to volume up on him. He's got power himself. He can get the knockout. If you're going to let Anthony Smith jab you to death for that long, then Hill's going to do a lot of damage there. So I could see Hill getting a knockout in any round here, scoring well that way. But I'm going to be on the Crute side. I think he should be going for takedowns early and often. And if he can do it, he can win all 3 rounds with takedowns, and he can get a submission. So I think him and Allen, I think, have the clearest path to 100-plus points because they're the best grapplers on this card compared to their competition. I will be on Crute, but I definitely want a lot of Hill exposure as well. I'm cool being overweight to both sides of this fight. It's not quite all in, but I probably get this fight in like 80-85% of my total lineups. And I'll be hoping we get a fun one. And we don't need the scorecards, hopefully. Next one on the card, we got Leo Santos minus 190 against Clay Guida plus 160. I've been thinking about betting Santos all week, to be honest with you, but he's 41 years old now. That's hard to trust always. I just think he has the edge everywhere in this fight other than wrestling. But how do you see this one going down, Dan?
Yeah, other than wrestling and cardio, right? Like, we don't
Right.
want a situation where Leo is completely gassed end of round 2, gives up a takedown, and then gets taken down all of round 3 and gets laid on. Like that's just what we don't want. But I kind of see Leo coming out here having the crisper striking and then having a big edge on the mat. So hopefully, Guida shoots for a takedown with his head, left there, with his head exposed, or maybe gets rocked with a shot and Leo takes his back. But yeah, I'm going to go Leo via submission here.
Yeah, same. I'm going to take Leo to be the 11th guy to submit Guida. I think he has the striking edge, the volume edge, the knockout power edge. And if it goes to the ground, he's the dangerous one. I think Guida's only chance would be to make this a slower fight where he's dancing around, picking some shots, confusing the judges, making him think he's winning the striking, and then maybe landing a takedown here or there. I just don't think he's doing anything with the takedowns against a guy like Santos. So all the upside is on Santos here. I think he can win by submission, knockout, or decision. But I do think we need the finish for him to score well on DraftKings. He's 8,800. For him to get over 10x, I think he's going to need a submission or a knockout because he's not high volume enough on the feet. And I don't know that he's a good enough wrestler to be racking up takedowns to score well in a decision. It's just that if it goes to the ground once, man, maybe that's all it takes for him to submit Guida. So I am going to take him to get the submission. I do want exposure to him on DraftKings, but I'll probably be, around the field. Whereas on the clay side, I just don't know how this guy wins. And if he does win, I don't see him scoring well. So I'll probably full fade Guida, just X him out of my player pool. And if I'm making 150 lineups, I don't think Guida makes any of them. So give me Santos there. Maybe I do end up making a play. I just don't really want to go 190 straight. So there's a couple parlay options, I think, on this card. So maybe I parlay him up with somebody. But I'm going to watch the weigh-ins after we finish this pod, and I'll figure it all out there. But for DraftKings, it's definitely Santos or pass for me. All right, next one on the card, we got – I love this fight. This is my favorite fight on the card. I've been wanting to see this fight since I first saw these guys. Two of the best strikers in the division. Two of the best strikers in the whole UFC, in my opinion. We got Rafael Fiziev minus 125 against Brad Riddell plus 105, who actually used to be Fiziev's striking coach at Tiger Muay Thai, I believe. I just think this is a very fun, technical striking match. Could go either way. I'm just going to sit back and watch it as a fan. I love both of these guys, but in my opinion, I would flip that line a little bit. So I'm going to pick Riddell just because I would give him a slight favorite because I think they're both great strikers, both have power, but maybe he can mix in one takedown each round, and that could be the deciding factor. I just see it being a split decision type fight that could go either way. I'm almost always going to go with the underdog in that scenario, but not only am I going with the underdog, I do think Riddell should be a very, very, very slight favorite in this fight. But either way, I'm just going to sit back. I'm not going to get a whole lot of exposure to it on DraftKings because I got it going the distance, and I don't think it's going to be high volume enough if there's no knockdowns for it to be a high-scoring fight. And with it being the co-main event of the card, I think both sides will get their fair amount of ownership. Maybe fading it is the way to go, and if it does go to a split decision, then I think that will be the right move. It'll be a great fight just to watch as a fan. And there's not a whole lot of fights that I'm just wanting to sit back and watch as a fan anymore. This one I would pay money for. Cannot wait for it. But how do you see it going down?
Yeah, I mean, look, two unbelievable strikers. Rafael Fiziev, the faster guy, the more explosive guy. And then Brad Riddell is just gritty, durable, well-rounded. I mean, you saw him take down Dober 5 times in their fight. So this should be one hell of a matchup. And honestly, I think you should be targeting it, man. I mean, if there's a knockout on either side, that's going to score well. And if it's a 3-round striking war, I mean, these guys are going to put up numbers. The only concern is if, Riddell wins via, laying on Fiziev, right? But, man, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about Fiziev, about him slowing down and this and that. I mean, if you actually look at the numbers, he landed more in round 3 against Bobby Green than he did in round 1 against Bobby Green. The only difference was that he also ate a lot more shots in round 3 than he did in round 1 and 2. So his strikes landed numbers don't go down. It's his strikes absorbed numbers that go up as the fight progresses. So let's just debunk that myth real quick that, his output completely wanes as the fight goes on. I think that's bullshit, man. I think he gets tired because he's so explosive that he's going to get hit more, but the dude's still going to be throwing the entire time. So give me Rafael Fiziev to win the first 2 rounds and survive the third and win a decision.
Yeah, I don't know that it would score well in a 15-minute striking match. I just think they're a little bit too technical to go out there and land a ton of volume on each other. So I think each of them will respect the other. They're friends as well. So I just don't see this being a phone booth type of fight. And that's what I expect is a 15-minute striking match, which is what I don't think score wells. And if Riddell does win by laying on Fiziev, that's the path to a high score and a decision, in my opinion. So for me, it's more so Riddell or pass. And I don't know that the field will feel the same way. I think they will be higher on Fiziev. And to me, he's the one that's not going to be going for takedown. So he has to get a knockout for him to score 100 plus points in this fight. And I just don't want to rely on that. I don't want to get a whole lot of exposure to either one because I don't want to be disappointed in a loss. I would rather just sit back, hope that we do get a really fun fight here. And if it goes the way I see it in my head, I just think the winner scores 70 to 80 points, which won't cut it on DraftKings, especially with the ownership that these guys are going to receive. But yeah, this is a pay-per-view worthy fight for me. I cannot wait for it. If the line moves anymore, I might be interested in betting the Riddell side, but I'm probably just completely staying away. Next one on the card, we got the main event, Rob Font, minus 145 against the legend Jose Aldo, plus 125. I like that it's 5 rounds for Rob Font. I think if this was a 3-round fight, I don't know that I would favor Aldo, but I'd be more likely to pick him in a 3-round fight. But with it being 5 rounds, I have a hard time seeing Aldo win rounds 4 and 5, which is going to put me on the Font end of this. But talk to me about this fight, Dan.
I mean, look, Font has been doing his thing finally over the hump, man. Because, I mean, I remember he's always had hands, man. This is nothing new. He's had hands since day one. He would just choke in big fights. I mean, you remember the Lineker, the Asuncao, the Pedro Munoz fights. I mean, he would choke in big fights straight up. Now I think he might be over that hump, so it's good to see because, I mean, the dude's always been a stud. But Jose Aldo's a guy that, you know, when I was in high school, I'd come home and watch this guy fight. You know what I mean, man? Such a legend. And the fact that he's still in the upper echelon of the sport 10 years later in a different weight class now, like, dude's just such a Hall of Famer. And as far as the cardio is concerned, I mean, in normal times, it's not because Jose Aldo's not out here running his miles. He definitely is. Look at the shape he's in. It's more so because the guy's so damn explosive that it's only natural he's going to slow down, you know, based on the kind of heat he throws. But that last fight against Pedro Munoz, man, I mean, he broke all his numbers for strikes landed, for strikes thrown. I mean, that's the most that Jose Aldo's ever thrown in a single fight. He won the 3rd round on all 3 judges' scorecards. So, that was a step in the right direction, man. I mean, 30-27 times 3. I mean, so go out there, win these first 3 rounds, and go ahead and lose the next 2, and you can beat Rob Font. It's just about, you know, is Rob Font going to be able to drain that energy out of Jose Aldo, make Jose Aldo do the walking mummy, you know, and then from there tee off on a guy who looks like, you know, he's about to be on his way out. So that's really what I'm concerned about. But man, with Rob Font, you got to be worried about his jab and his right hand, which they're phenomenal. But like with Jose Aldo, you got to be worried about his jab, his right hand, his hooks, his kicks, his takedowns, his jiu-jitsu. So I think Jose Aldo is the more well-rounded guy here. Not that Rob Font doesn't have jiu-jitsu. I just know he ain't a black belt. And we've seen Jose Aldo in that Marlon Vera fight, 1-1 going to the 3rd round, takes his back. You know, he's able to adapt and find ways to win. So give me the legend Jose Aldo to come out here and win. And I like Rob Font. And usually when I fade Jose Aldo, I'm getting dog money on Max Holloway. I'm getting dog money on Volkanovski. Like, why am I not getting dog money on Rob Font? So give me Jose Aldo here to win this fight.
I'd say you're not getting dog money because of the 5 rounds. And that's why I'm picking Font. I just think Font's going to win rounds 3 through 5 and get it done that way. I think rounds 1 and 2 will be super close. And I do think these guys will be pretty tentative of each other. I don't think Font goes out there and lands over 5.5 strikes per minute against a guy like Aldo. I think he will have to respect Aldo's offense, and he'll be picking his shots. He'll be landing the jab. He's not going to be going for the kill early. I think if he finishes the fight, it's more likely rounds 4 or 5. But I'm going to pick it to go to a decision. I'll take Font to win at least 3 rounds. And my take on DraftKings is going to be more so Font or pass. I just don't see Aldo putting up a really high score. He's not a high volume guy as it is. He did put up his best numbers in his last fight. And if he has 2 more rounds to work with, then sure, he can score well if he does get the win here. But for me, I think it's going to be Font that has the chance at the 100 points. And I also kind of like the fade because if Aldo's going to win 2 rounds, if Font's going to win the 3, I don't know that he's going to score enough, if he's going to be tentative at all against a guy like Aldo, to score enough to be on the optimal lineup when this fight will be in the majority of all lineups. So I think the fade might be the way to go. Hope that it's a close fight for all 25 minutes. And if Font puts up 85 points, he's not going to be on the optimal lineup, and he's going to be 40+% owned. So kind of like fading this fight, but if I am going to be putting either one of these guys in my lineup, it's going to be Font. He does have a whole lot of wins with over 100 points, and he could do it here, especially if he's going to go out there and get a late finish. But I have this going the distance, so that's why I kind of like the fade here. Yeah, Font's going to be my pick in this one. I think it is an awesome matchup. This and the co-main event, in my opinion, I would pay for. So we get a free card on a Saturday. I cannot wait for it. And then next week, we got a pay-per-view. We got Nunes coming back. If we get 50 plus likes on this video, we'll do this podcast again for free next week. But if we don't, we're going to do it behind the paywall for the DFS Army VIP members. If you're not a member yet, become one today. Promo code Sleeveless. We have all sports available if you just want to do a single sport and try out MMA. But I would suggest you just go VIP and get them all because we crush at all sports. To end the podcast, we always do a kill shot, somebody who we think can be on the optimal lineup and not super owned. Do you have anybody on this card in mind right now, Dan?
Yeah, my two favorite dogs, Jeremiah Wells and Jamal Hill. Hopefully one of them comes through and wins big, because when these two win big, they will be on optimal lineups.
Yeah, I agree. I like both of those, and I think if they're going to win, a knockout is their best shot, which could score 100-plus points. So I think those are both solid plays. I'm going to go with my boy Luis Smolka. I think he is just a better fighter everywhere. He scores 100-plus points in all of his wins, and if he's going to look to grapple in this fight, I think he could do it again and maybe get another finish. So I'm going to go with Smolka. If I had to pick an underdog, I guess I would go with Vandera, just because he's super cheap. He's a heavyweight who I think can finish this fight. So Vandera, Smolka would be the two that I go with. But hopefully we come through and I see you at the top of the leaderboard. If I don't see you, hopefully I see some other helmets. We got some DFS Army winners up there. And if it's not somebody that's a DFS Army member, hopefully you guys are listening now and we help you out a little bit. But until the next time, I'm Kyle Marley. That's Dan Levy. We are out. Good luck this weekend. See you again.